Yes, folks, it's Thursday. I'm Fred McMurray. It's 2 p.m. Pacific, which means this has to be, thankfully.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pillars of Franchising. And as Kristin likes to say, it is Friday Eve. And mentioning Kristin, she's not here today. She is in mom mode doing baseball with her boys all weekend. So good luck in the heat to her. Fun times for her, I'm sure. But we have a great show for you today. But first, we want to mention Andrea Mundy, one of our regular contributors, has a birthday today. So we wanted to make sure to say happy birthday to Andrea Mundy. Hope you're having a great day. Also, if you have questions during the show, we've got a great guest on today, Eric Morales from CareerPlug. If you've got questions for him, if you've got questions for Jerry after that, Karen and Ray, our call-in number is 323-580-5755. So don't hesitate to give us a call and we will do our best to answer your questions. Quick intro today. We're not doing an official word on the street. Jerry's got some political information that's going to affect small businesses, so stay tuned for his segment. But right now, we've got Eric Morales from CareerPlug.
Welcome, Eric.
Great to be here.
Good. How are you doing today?
Well, fantastic.
I want to welcome Eric. He is the Partnership Account Executive Manager at CareerPlug. He started at CareerPlug in 2012 and has helped thousands of franchisees with their hiring needs. He's passionate about connecting with franchisees to help solve the biggest challenge, attracting and hiring great people. He has worked with franchises across several industries such as home health, home services, automotive, insurance, fitness, and many others. Lastly, you can find Eric trying out new restaurants with his wife and daughter in his hometown of Austin, Texas. But you can't find him. You can't find him. He is most likely at Barton Springs having a cold swim. That sounds exciting.
It is.
Yeah, it does. Hey, you've got some fun places to go to in Austin. One of my favorite places for sure.
We sure do.
Yeah. So Eric, we'd love to find out, first of all, if you can give us a little bit of an overview of CareerPlug and kind of, how it works. I mean, for all of us here, hiring, it's like one of our most talked about topics. It is such a pain right now for so many people. So we'd love to find out a little bit more about kind of what you do and what this software does, and just an overview of your services.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to share about that. And thanks for having me here. I have been with CareerPlug for almost a decade now, right? So we were founded in 2007 here in Austin, Texas, where I'm at now. We have over 15,000 clients, so franchisees using our system. And so basically we partnered with over 270 networks. And our main focus here is to make hiring easier, right? And to really just help with the biggest challenge. And we're a small team, but we've grown a lot since the pandemic. But like I said, our focus is to really help just employers just find great people. So overall, that's our mission. So we do that in several ways, right? First off, it's just like, I hear this all the time. It's like, how do I stand out? How do I find great applicants, right? So definitely what you want to do is that's the first part of it, right? You want to have a system in place, right? You want to have a system that's going to help you, a software like CareerPlug. And why do you want to do that? Well, number one, the biggest challenge right now is that it's a tough market, right? It's a job seekers market right now. There's too many job opportunities and not enough applicants to fill them. It's still that way right now. So that's a big challenge, right? So it's very competitive out there. So before the pandemic, and where we are now, there's 50% more jobs out there that still need to be filled. So if every applicant today found a job, there still would be a surplus of jobs that need to be filled, right? So what do you do, right? How do you compete? And like I said, you need a software, you need a system, and you need a process, and that's what we do, right? So we provide a hiring software that just will streamline your process, really get you out everywhere, make it easy for these candidates to find you. And we help you with attracting them to apply and then providing a great experience so you can hire the right person faster.
It's interesting. I was taking a look at your website and doing a little bit of research, and this is, again, one of my favorite topics. And what I love about this is that you said it was really created for like non-HR people, because for those of us non-HR people that are out there hiring, and it's holistic. I mean, it's everything from helping people with the templates, providing templates, making it easy for all of us business owners because we're busy. So making it a little bit easier and having that system in place. And it looked like it was like end to end, right? All the way, very comprehensive.
Yep, in the end. And that's what we do. That's how we're different, right? We're easy to do business with, and our product's easy to use, right? Hiring is difficult, right? So we need to make it easy for you. And yeah, you made a good point. It's like most of our clients, they're not HR people. They're mostly the business owner, right? They're wearing many hats. And hiring can be very time consuming, right? It can be very costly, especially if you're the one that's doing it, all by yourself. So yeah, the system has to be easy to use, and you don't have to be an HR professional, right? You just need to know how to log in and click buttons. It's super easy to use.
So what are the pitfalls you see? Because you're working with so many different people. What are some things, especially right now, what are some things where people kind of are stumbling a little bit?
So where I'm noticing a lot of employers where they're stumbling is trying to manage everything on their own, right? They want to see, of course, naturally, everybody wants to do the most cost-effective approach, right? So what they'll do is they'll go out and post things on their own, post to job boards, and try to manage every applicant, and really be able to give them a fast response. And have a system in place to have a process to be able to provide a great experience to attract them and keep them during the hiring process. So really what's the big challenge with that is that there's a lot of places you can go, right? You can go to Indeed, right? You can go to ZipRecruiter, you can post on Google and Facebook, social media, right? So when you're doing that all by yourself, and that's the right thing to do, right? Go to those job boards. But that takes a lot of time to manage applicants coming from all those different channels, right? So the key here is, one, be everywhere all at once, right? Make it super easy for these folks to find you, right? But number two, get to them fast, right? So if you have job postings everywhere and you're trying to manage things that everything's in your inbox is flooded, it's going to be hard for you to get back to them soon. And so by starting off with, not being able to get back with them quick enough, and not really have a process in place that you treat everybody and you have each workflow is the same. You're kind of just reacting to the situation, right? And in that situation, it's hard to compete because most companies nowadays have software like this, right? And it's going to be very difficult for you to just to manage everything on your own. Like I said, a lot of these folks are not HR people. They're doing the best that they can. And so that would be a big challenge that I'm noticing. Is everybody's just trying to do things on their own, which I get. I say, try it first, see if that's what you can do. But keep in mind, there are softwares in places to make things much easier for you and more cost effective.
Well, it's funny because I think we've all, as business owners, we've kind of had to change our mentality a little bit. Because we went right, didn't we? We went from having lots of talent out there, and then all of a sudden it's like we've got to move fast, right? So we've got these things, and we've got to make sure we're making it a top priority. And I noticed one of the things that your software did is it actually timed how long it took to get someone through the system. Because I can't tell you how many business owners have said, I lost people. I lost somebody because it didn't move fast enough. And I think that's what's happening right now. It's just like housing, right? Where you gotta be on top of things.
I think a lot has changed since I was looking for a job, which is a long time ago. So I think my question to Eric now, what is today's candidate looking for? I mean, essentially when I was looking, I would snail mail a resume and then wait days. So what is today's candidate looking for in a job?
That's a great question. So this is very important, right? Since it is a job seekers market, there's top 3 things that every candidate's looking for when they're looking at your job posting, right? Number 1 could be pretty obvious. Compensation, right? Mm-hmm. How much am I going to get paid? You know, what's in it for me? What do you think is number 2?
Culture.
Very close. That's number 3. Benefits.
Okay.
Benefits would be number 2. And number 3 is the culture. Culture is very important today, right? It's like, am I going to thrive in this environment, right? Is this where, I'm going to be long term? So that's very important. And having that up front, having that information while they're looking at the job posting is going to be very critical for the conversion, right? Because like I said, you have jobs everywhere, which is great. That's your first start, right? But we don't want people just to look at the job. We want them to apply too. So give them what they're looking for up front, and you're going to have, you're going to convert those views to actual applicants, right? So that's what they're looking for, those top 3 things.
So how do you, on the culture piece, I mean, the compensation seems to be, I wouldn't say easy, like, okay, you've got the compensation, you have the benefits. Those are pretty hard things to look at. But if you look at culture, what's your advice for franchisees on how can you showcase what your culture looks like, feels like? What are some of those indicators?
So that's another great question, because I hear that all the time, like, how do I do that? Right? I have a great opportunity. I think my culture is fantastic. How do I show the candidate that, right? And it's your careers page, right? Most companies have a careers page on their website. And if you're with CareerPlug, we provide that for you, right? So with your careers page, you can, add, photos of your team. You can have videos of your team. You can have language about your mission and your values. Just have that up front, easy to view and absorb. And that's how you do it. Because like I said, there's so many jobs out there, right? There's too many, and there's not enough applicants, but they don't look, not all of them look great. So you can really stand out by having a software like CareerPlug, a great careers page, and just put what they're looking for up front. That's how you do it. And that's how you get not only more applicants, but better quality applicants, because these folks see, okay, yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for, and they get excited.
Exactly. So you kind of reel them in that way.
Right? Exactly. I still hear, employers say, well, they have to sell me. And it's like, well, maybe a decade ago, but now, no.
Yeah, you got to sell them.
You got to sell them, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. So one of the things too, when I noticed that too many times right now that, so you get these quality candidates, and a lot of times we'll fall in love with people too. We're like, oh, this is the right person, right? This is the right person. And I noticed that you also do assessments. So tell me about, kind of what are your thoughts on assessments, when you use assessments, and just how that fits into your whole process as well.
So I say, send assessments as much as you can, right? Because with CareerPlug, you're going to be everywhere, right? So you're going to have a good, healthy applicant flow. What we don't want is that you have a lot more work to do, right? So what we need to do is vet them throughout the process. And one of the first steps would be assessments. So we always provide a math and verbal and a personality assessment, right? So we can get some more upfront information about them before meeting them. And number 2, guess what? If they don't complete it, or if they're dragging their feet, that's good information to know, right?
Yes.
So it just shows how invested they are. But it really helps with, especially a leadership position. It just really gives you a lot of information, and it's not much of a hurdle. Like applicants who are, going through the hiring process with companies, I mean, that's a standard thing. So I say use them as much as you can.
Absolutely. So, and so you're advocating doing it at the beginning, right? So maybe you don't, one thing, there might be some people that you don't see the talent that's there because you might be looking at like experience, right? So that's one thing. And then the other would be to just make sure you've got the right one. If you love them, then you can say, okay, this confirms it. This confirms what I'm seeing as well.
Absolutely. And there's not always just one way to do it, right? If you're noticing, hey, you put this in the front of the process and people are just dropping off, maybe it is too much of a hurdle for that specific position. So maybe you want to put it a little bit more in the tail end, but definitely have it because I think it's just a great way to just be able to get more information that you wouldn't necessarily get in an interview or on the resume.
Right.
So it really depends. I would say just with your specific position, what's working for the candidates and pivot if you need to. But try to use all the tools as possible because it's really going to help with weeding out folks that are really not that invested.
So Eric, what is ghosting?
But at candidates where you think you've got a great one, right? You're all excited. And then, I keep hearing this all the time. And then all of a sudden they're not there. They don't answer, right? You're thinking you had them, and sometimes it's right at the very end of the process. And so they literally ghost you. They're gone. They don't answer your emails or anything.
That's it.
Is that it? Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. So, okay. So I want to know not what it is, but I want to know, what do you do about it? How can you not have that happen?
Right. So here's the thing. What we're noticing is that if you give them the opportunity to pick the time that works best for them, right? And with the software, you can just send them a link and it syncs up to your calendar. And then it just gives them a few times and they pick the one that works best for them and they commit to that time. That behavior alone is powerful, right? And also in addition to that, make it easy for them to, give you a heads up. Not everybody's ghosting you because they have, it's the bad behavior. It's not always about that. Some things do come up. It's just that maybe a challenge to get a hold of you or type an email saying, hey, this is what's going on. Right? With CareerPlug, you can able to text back and forth really quickly. And somebody can just say, hey, I can't make it. Is it possible to reschedule? That person wouldn't have been able to do that if you didn't have the ability to quickly communicate with each other. So the culture has shifted a little bit. I mean, that's not just with employment, but with other things. So people just completely disappear out of processes. Yes. But we're learning, one, make it easy for them to tell you what's going on. And two, give them the ability to pick the time that works best for them. Those two things really go a long way.
Which kind of connects in with what you were saying earlier, is that we're selling them as much as they're selling us. Right. So we have to meet them where they are, right? Because that's part of the getting them comfortable and saying, right. Hey, I might want to work with these people.
Exactly. It's going back to just making it easy, right? So CareerPlug not only makes it easy for the employer, but easy for the applicant too, right? So you have a great experience, right? They find you, they see your great careers page, they get really excited, they apply, boom, you get immediately notified. They're like, wow, that was great. I was excited and I'm already a candidate. They're going to have an interview, right? And that's one of the biggest things, is being able to provide a great candidate experience. And this is new. This is new to a lot of employers. Because when I say that, they're like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean about a great candidate experience? So this is something that it's very important.
Exactly.
I think one of the things that in talking to other employers that's happening, and I guess it's similar to ghosting, except at a delayed time. A candidate signs on board, takes training, works for a couple of days, and then all of a sudden doesn't show up. You can't call them. They don't answer the phone. And what I'm hearing is, and some of the people who have been debriefed is, oh, my wife said I don't have to work anymore, or I don't want to work anymore. So is that a legitimate answer?
I would hope not, that you didn't have the conversation with your wife before you joined the company.
These are all indicators. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I just got a job. No, I mean, look, I think a lot of that is the hiring process. Companies typically are reactive to the situation, right? And so when you're desperate for just a body to come in, I mean, you overlook a lot of things, right? A lot of red flags that you normally would have seen. You kind of like, but it's going to work out, right? So it really depends on, your strategy. So if you're reactive to it, you're at the mercy of what you get, and you have to act fast. So again, you may bring somebody on board that really shouldn't have been. So we always recommend, hey, be proactive with your hiring. Build up a bench of people that you could always call on if you need to, right? Because I get approached all the time by LinkedIn. People are just always throwing me job opportunities. Not to say that I'm fantastic. That just happens, right?
Yes.
That just happens. Yeah. But what I do is like, hey, I'm good and I'm having a great time at CareerPlug, but I have somebody, and you can reach out to them, right? So it's always good to have connections and people that you can always reach out to, because maybe that person has already found a job, but they probably know somebody that you can reach out to. So that's how I see it. If you're having a lot of those type of hires where people are just taking off in the beginning, it's because maybe your strategy is a bit more reactive than it needs to be.
Exactly. And I think it's hard right now, right? Because people want to hire, but then they get caught in this cycle of, I want to hire, I've got to hire fast, and they hire the wrong people. Those wrong people leave and they're back at it again. So yeah. It's balancing that. It's balancing that, being proactive and a little bit reactive. So yeah.
Exactly. And being reactive is expensive.
It is.
It's expensive to hire somebody, onboard them, and then they're gone. You have to go back to square one. I mean, nobody wants to go through that.
I'd love to talk about your analytics. So I want to make sure that we talk about that, because analytics can be just so powerful. So I was thinking about, all the different analytics that you have, some of the measurements. So I'd love to, know a little bit more about the analytics that you do have available for franchisees, and how they can use those in their, how they can always be thinking about hiring, or just some key things that you help them with in this process.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned one initially with the time to hire, right?
Yes.
So that's a big one, right? That's how we're able to help with the franchisee, and then we talk with the franchisor just to make sure that hey, how can we shorten the time to hire, right? Because that's always a goal, and being able to show, and like I talked about earlier, it's great to get a bunch of views, right? It's great to be everywhere and people are checking out your job and they're really excited, but if they're not converting to applicants, there's an issue with your posting, there's an issue with your content, maybe your careers page is putting them off, right? So that's excellent information to know. Like if your conversion rate from views to applicants is poor, like, hey, maybe I'm getting 100 views, but I'm getting 2 applicants. Let's go in there and see what we can do, right? Because you do have a great opportunity. It's just not being sold in the right way, right? And then we're able to identify in each one of the hiring steps, okay, we have some people that are ghosting, or we have some people that just don't make it past a certain part. Okay, what's going on? We notice that this part of the hiring process is appearing to be a hurdle, right? So we can go in there and identify where the problem is, and then just adapt and see if we can make that just an easier experience or a better experience for the candidate. It always goes back to that.
Yeah, I'm curious because you have all these amazing analytics. Are you able to even figure out, like, if you think about what happened with some of the hiring trends? I mean, are you able to take a look at some of those trends and say, oh, wait a minute, this is this is going to impact us in a few months, or, and able to kind of feed that back in, kind of that overarching look for franchisees as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, we've been, like I said, we've been doing this since 2007. So we always have our ears to the ground. We're always trying to figure out, okay, what's going to impact our clients? What's going on in the market today? What's going on in just the labor market? How's the economy doing? All these things we're taking into account, right? Because it does impact, the amount of people that are looking at jobs, the amount of people that are applying, and just the competition that the job seekers have and our clients have. So we want to give them that competitive edge, right? We want to make sure that they're able to be successful with our software, and just being able to get in front of them, right? And mostly just being able to sell their opportunity in the way where an applicant can really see the value. So absolutely. Another thing that we really want to focus on is like, okay, the last thing we want for you is that you make a fantastic hire. Like, oh, this person is great. How do I duplicate this person, right?
Yes.
The last thing we want for you to say, but how did I do that? Right? We want you to have that process ready to go so you can see, okay, where did they come from? Which job board did they come from? And then when they came in and said, okay, how did the assessments go? How were the scores? And every step of the way, you have a map now. So then you can just repeat that process over and over and over again, right? So that's our goal.
Saves money, saves time.
Yeah.
Right. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every time you're making a hire. And a lot of people do that, especially if they're doing that on their own, because like we mentioned in the beginning, a lot of these folks are the HR people. They are the owner, right? They're a lot of things. And it makes sense that you're kind of trying to figure things out. You don't need to do that. You have a hiring software here, a CareerPlug, that's going to make things, it's just going to make your life much easier.
Sounds good.
So Eric, I have a question for you, and as we close out. Besides using CareerPlug, what are the top 3 things an employer can do to attract employees?
So besides using CareerPlug, nothing.
That's it. That's the answer.
Yeah. Oh, good luck.
That's everything.
I love it. I love it.
No, just be positive, right? I hear a lot of negative mindsets out there, and it is tough, and I get it, right? But the people are out there. They are. Right. The thing is that other companies are scooping up pretty quickly. Right. And just have that understanding.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So just keep in mind that everybody is looking for the same person you are. Everybody is. Yeah. Right. So I hear this, like, they're not out there. They are. You just never see them. Right. Mm-hmm. So if you don't use CareerPlug, I recommend you should. But if you don't, just know that folks are out there. They're ready to work. They're great at what they do. You just have to get to them. One, like I said, make it easy for them to find you, CareerPlug or not, right? And get to them as fast as you can. And number 3, provide a great experience, because that's the first impression of your business. It's the first impression of your business. So if that's clunky, if that was difficult, like if it's like, wow, I had an interview, I had 2, oh, that was tough. To get there, that was a rough experience. That's not the first impression you want them to have, right? And surprisingly, that happens a lot. Yeah. So the last thing I will say about that is that people now can rate your business online, right? Mm-hmm. And if they have a poor experience through the hiring process, you better believe they're going to let people know about that. And that's going to ding you. Yes. So back to using CareerPlug, you're definitely going to want to do that because it's going to help you.
Sounds good. So Eric, how do people get a hold of you? How do they get in touch with you?
So I'll leave my email address. It's super easy. It's Eric, ERIC @careerplug.com. Send me an email if you want to learn more about CareerPlug. If you want to know just about hiring and you're not ready to hop on CareerPlug just yet, just Shoot me an email. My number here is 512-579-0163. You can reach me by phone as well. But yeah, give me a shot. I'd love to work with y'all.
And I'm also going to do a plug for your website, because you actually have some really good articles there. I noticed there's an article like on ghosting. There's one on toxic culture. So you provide a lot of thought leadership as well as the software. So
yeah, our marketers are fantastic. They have great resources. So check it out. There's a lot of good stuff there.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Nice
You're very
talking with
welcome.
you.
It was great to be here.
Yeah.
Hey, franchise owners, how's your local marketing? Do you feel like you could use some help keeping up with your social media posts and comments and reviews? Do you wonder if you could be doing more to attract local customers? Are you able to identify new move-ins to your local area? At Westvine, we help franchisees like you reach more local customers through digital marketing. With daily monitoring, creative content, and ad placement, and customer data intelligence, we'll get your business in front of the people who want your products or services. We also work with franchisors who need an agency to handle the digital marketing for all of their locations. If you're ready to reach more local customers, give us a call at 805-265-5440 or visit us at westvine.com. That's 805-265-5440 or westvine.com.
Elizabeth, you pulled it.
My mouse was headed toward the mute.
That was great.
Like, I didn't quite make it in time.
I kind of thought Fred was coming over to us, so I was already prepared, but I was so entranced in Eric's presentation, I almost missed it too.
Yeah. That's the thing, when you're listening well, you gotta focus on that. It's hard to shift gears.
Well, and before we get into the news, I got some comments on Eric's piece that I really want to get out. I'm just feeling it. First off, Eric did a great job, and we all know that the world is looking for more employees right now. Certainly our businesses all are. And I can tell you firsthand the pain that goes with trying to find people. So anybody out there that heard this and they don't get a hold of Eric to at least have a conversation is really missing the boat, because that sounded phenomenal. I love the way Karen called out his website and all the great folks. If you're looking for people, get a hold CareerPlug site and take a look at it, because it sounds amazing. I'm going to do it when we get done here. I'll tell you that. I love Ray and ghosting, so I'm going to recommend Ray goes to the CareerPlug website right away and read everything on ghosting, because he really had a great question, but I think that would be good for him. And then I just love Eric's comeback when Ray asked him, what else should you do besides CareerPlug? Well, nothing. Just go to CareerPlug, right?
It's such an important topic. And, I have some marketing clients in other industries, and it's the conversation everyone is having, every single one, and presenting yourself well in terms of culture. And everybody's starting to try to recognize the value of telling the story and somebody's career path from entry level to management, and showing people where they can go in your company and the culture. It's just become so much more important than it ever was, I think.
Well, and Eric had some good points too. As somebody that actively recruits literally all the time, and when I say me, I'm saying my organization, because I don't do a lot of it anymore. But you try and offer more money, and sometimes, to Eric's point, there's other things on an applicant's checklist that are more important to them. So you got to ask the right questions, find out what drives them, and get in their wheelhouse if you really want to attract them. And one of the things he said that is gold, and it frustrates me so much when I'm coaching franchisees who complain they don't have enough staff, and then they get an applicant, and I say, well, when did you get back in touch with them? Well, I was busy. It took 2 or 3 days, and then they were already gone. Well, yeah, because there's 10 people calling that person, right? So you need to be on them right now. So Eric did a phenomenal job, and I want to commend him for what he's doing, because highly needed right now in the world that we're in.
Well, it really is. And anybody younger than me wants instant gratification, because they've grown up in the computer age. So if you're not moving as quickly as they are, you're off the boat. So it's something you consider generationally, that the people in the generation just even below mine, my kids especially too, but their expectations are that you move right now.
And I will tell you this again from experience, you see the gray in my hair. So Ray and I have a lot in common, and we think that way a lot of times. When I was looking for jobs early on, pay and benefits were number one, as Eric said. But after that, I really didn't care about a whole lot. We weren't really into culture so much in those days. You kind of suck it up and deal with it, or create your own or something, you know. But again, you don't know what they're looking for. I can tell you, as you and most of our listeners know, we actually bought a daycare center to provide better daycare and subsidized daycare for our staff as a retention and recruiting tool. Well, we have hired 2 or 3 people back that were great employees, you know, pre-COVID, and left for a variety of reasons. And they tell me the number one reason they came back was the daycare center. Number one, because everybody else could match their pay needs and their benefit needs. And that was something nobody else had done. So again, my suggestion to, you know, business owners looking to lock some people in is to find out what they are looking for, what makes their life better, and find a way to, you know, contribute to it. So there you go.
Absolutely. Well, moving on to your information, Jerry, you have some news. We're going to do a little bit of a word on the street with you in this segment and talk about some things that are going on in Washington that the franchise industry needs to be aware of. So let us have it.
I got 2 things I'm talking about with you today, and they're both important to me and I think important to business owners. Number one is what in the heck is going on in DC that impacts small business. And number 2 is about money in small business, and they kind of run hand in hand. Number one, and this is hot off the presses, literally I got an email about 10 minutes before we went on air from NFIB, National Federation of Independent Business, that the Senate is starting conversations about adding a 3.8% tax increase on all small business. Now, there are a couple driving factors here. Number one, they're trying to pay for the Build Back Better program, which a lot of us have heard about, and they're scrambling, trying to find where to bring money in. So taxes are always one of the things they're going to take a look at, not usually small business, but in this case it is. And the second thing is, people in DC who have never owned or run a small business really don't know what it means to run a small business. And their perception is that business owners with small businesses use it as a tax loophole to avoid paying taxes. And they're not paying taxes for Medicare and some of those kinds of things. They don't really understand that through the payroll that we have, we're paying that. Through the payroll we give ourselves, we're paying all of those things. And that this tax is never going to be paid by the intended person. It is not going to be paid by the small business owner. Yes, I might write the check, but I'm going to either increase my costs to my customers to make up for it. And by the way, when a small business increases their prices, they don't increase it 3.8%. They increase it 38% or 48% because they're going to get a little bit of profit on anything that they put in their cost. And number 2, that if they don't do it that way or some combination, it's going to impact their employees. Because if you are in a position as a small business owner where you can't increase your price on your products and services, and you get hit with another tax, you're not going to take it out of your pocket. I will just tell you, you're not going to take it out of your pocket. So in many cases, that comes out of bonuses for employees, benefits for employees, even pay increases for employees. So I would ask our listeners that if you're a small business owner or thinking about a small business owner, get a hold of your senator, tell them that they have to avoid voting for this 3.8% increase because it will not impact the people that they're trying to get it to impact. So that's my word on the street for the day.
So your advice to the small business owners that will be affected by this is to get in touch with their senators and congresspeople?
Absolutely. Let them know that you've heard that Congress is considering this, or the Senate is considering this, and explain what you would do as a business owner, how that would impact you, your customers, and your employees, so that they really know and they understand that it's not just an easy thing that they put a tax on small business and a small business owner sends them a check, that it's going to filter down to people that they're not even considering. So yes, and I'm guessing IFA, International Franchise Association, will be sending out something on it here shortly. So you heard it here first.
So stay tuned for that. Check in with the IFA, but also if you need quick access to find your senator or congressperson, you can go to senate.gov or house.gov to reach both branches, both houses, and find the quickest way to get an email off and support small businesses. So Jerry, next on our agenda, item 19.
Item 19, and for those that don't know what item 19 is, when you are a franchisee or considering to be a franchisee, you will get a document called the FDD, Franchise Disclosure Document. It's regulated by Washington, D.C., and it's got to be redone every year by franchisors. Item 19 is a component, a segment of your FDD that deals with the costs and the revenue and the profit of the business that you're looking to buy, the franchise you're looking to buy. And for me, that is always the first place I go when I'm looking at a new FDD for a new business is what are their metrics right now? What does the last year or 5 years look like from the actual business owners that are running locations of that franchise? And in that, you're going to get a lot of really great information. There's going to be information on revenues, of course. And here's the thing I like about it. It's broken down into quartiles. So they're using that part of the information will be the number of units they've got in their system. It'll be the number of units reporting their financial situation in their system. So you can see how many of them are engaged and how active they are at sharing information. Because if I'm looking at an FDD, I would like to see the majority of those locations reporting so that you know that they're engaged. And secondly, that you're getting a really good cross-section when you're looking at the numbers, not just the high achievers, but a cross-section of all of them. And to that point, it's broken down into quartiles, Elizabeth. So you're going to get the top 25%, the second 25%, the third, and the bottom 25% of the ones that report. So you can look at, whatever variables you want. I always look at, some of them are in major markets where my markets might be smaller. So maybe I don't make the top quartile because I don't have the number of customers available or the population density. But so if you put yourself in the second or third quartile, and right there, you can get a really good feel of how you would perform in that franchise situation. So I look at that. They will list distinguishing characteristics between each of the quartiles. Also, different segments of that would relate to not only revenues, but profits and costs so that you can kind of move the needle a little bit on all of those categories, So I'll tell you straight up what I do. If I'm looking at it being in the Midwest, I typically look at myself in the second quartile for revenue and profit. I look at the third quartile for cost because our build out costs and cost doing business and labor and those kinds of things are typically lower in the Midwest than in some of those major metro areas. So I can kind of play with some of those numbers and figure out what my potential profit might look like in that operation. And so I would suggest to our listeners and people that are looking into a franchise that item 19 should be, if not the first place, one of the first places you go to. And I want them to understand what they're seeing and how to use it when they're making decisions. So Elizabeth, I've kind of spewed a lot of information. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, here's one question I have. What is the requirement for franchise systems to report in the item 19? Are all item 19s created equally? Can you trust the information that it's going to be consistent and the same across the board for each different franchise system that you're looking at?
Well, you really, as a franchisor, you do not want the Department of Justice knocking on your door. So it will be very accurate. And let me put it this way, it will be as accurate as the information sent in by franchisees. The franchisor is not going to fudge those because they have to have documented evidence, financials from franchisees that have sent them in. So they're not going to fudge. It's going to be very, very, very accurate. Really, the only variables are, as I said, the quartiles and where you think you would fit into those quartiles.
Is this something that if I'm looking to buy a franchise and I am not familiar with the FDD, is this something I can interpret myself, or is this something that I would do well to get a franchise attorney to help me interpret?
Well, I think most people would do okay with it because it's, first off, you don't have to do math. You don't have to do any of those kinds of things. They'll give you an explanation as to what's in that graph that you're looking at. They said boxes with the different quartiles and all that kind of stuff. So they'll give you an explanation of it, and you can look at that and make your own assumptions. But to your point, talking to somebody from corporate, once you've looked at the FDD, you can talk to corporate about it and get some more insight. But a franchise attorney is great. Now, again, and Elizabeth, you and I and the rest of us here at Pillars have talked about this. There's a big difference between a franchise attorney and an attorney that does other things in the non-franchise world. So make sure you're talking to a franchise attorney, because like Laura or somebody like that, because they understand FDDs, they understand item 19s, they can answer some very straightforward questions for you. And actually, they're kind of paid to find the chinks in the armor, the issues in that FDD or that item 19, and bring it to light for you to talk about.
So in terms of recent events, we've had a pandemic. We're bumping up against a recession. There's a lot of tumult going on in the world around us. When they update this every year, what do you do when something's going to be skewed? You're going to have weird, like you may have a natural disaster in one area of the country, or you may have a pandemic across the whole entire world. How are you going to look at an item 19 as someone right now looking for a franchise system and account for that and understand whether this is still a good investment?
That's a phenomenal question, something I should have thought of. So thank you for bringing it up. The U.S. government, after the pandemic, actually made all franchisors go back and redo their FDD to factor in what had happened during COVID. So if you were to look at one of the FDDs today, 2 years after the actual onset of the pandemic, you would see a year in there with potentially a very large dip in some of those things. So again, going back to how reliable is it and those kinds of things, it's spot on because they had to report that. I will tell you from talking to franchisors, the government was very, very picky what was sent to them that year, even pickier than usual, because they knew this impact and they wanted to make sure that everything was on the up and up when it comes to the impact of the pandemic on the item 19. So yes, now you cannot look forward and see what's going to happen during a recession. However, you can look backwards because we have a recession every 8 to 10 years, and you can get access to those FDDs over that period of time and the item 19s. So you can see the ebb and flow of revenues and profits and those kinds of things for anything you're looking for out there based on what's happened in the previous recessions.
So based on all that information over a historical thing, you would do well if you're looking for something that's somewhat recession proof, or as recession proof as it can be, to take a little bit of a longer view of the past than just this 1 year, right?
Oh, absolutely. I would want to look at several years, even if we didn't take a recession or a pandemic into account. But yes, I would say so. And, as we're looking forward over the next 2 or 3 years, I think it's highly likely we have a recession. There are some economists talking about even a depression in the next few years. So as a business owner or potential franchisee, looking at how that business has done during recessions will give you a really good feel for how they're going to do moving forward through a recession or something deeper. And there are, especially in the franchise world, there are a lot of fairly recession-proof franchise systems out there. If you are in a model that is more of a moderate price point for the end users or the end purchasers, you will hit a recession because cash before a recession. And then when there's a paychecks being impacted, they want that same product, but they don't want to spend as much, so they buy down just a little bit. So I can tell you from our experience, we've seen our businesses actually grow during recessions. So for somebody looking at a recession potential comes into play and you're really concerned, I would look at several years, ask some really tough questions about how that business did during the last recession, and be prepared to make some decisions based on that.
All right, so I have 2 questions to wrap us up. One, what can someone do with a Pillars of Franchise team? If they have questions about the FDD in general, if they have questions about item 19, how can Pillars as a team help someone who wants to get into franchising?
Well, there's a long list, to be honest, but I think the specific to your point, all of us that are franchisees that are mentors on this page or in this group have been through a couple recessions, maybe more, right, Ray? So we have lived through it. We have experience with it. We can answer a lot of questions about our businesses and how it impacted it, pro or con. We cannot get into a lot of detail on the FDD of the one that you're looking at, but if you have some specific questions, we may be able to give you some non-legal advice and counsel on that. And of course, Laura is in our group, and she would certainly be able to talk to some of the legal issues coming up through that thing. So Pillars is a wealth of information through our mentor group, because we've all lived it, we've all done it, and we've all got some opinions and some advice on those kinds of things. Great question.
All right, second question is our usual. With all of the uncertainty going on around us in the world, is it a good time to buy a franchise?
Well, you know, I sound like a clock that just come around to midnight. I say the same, but there's always good reasons for it. I think it's a phenomenal time. You know, if you work for an employer and they go through a recession, it's the luck of the draw, whether you're going to be somebody that continues to have a job or be able to continue to get raises, your benefits might be impacted or something like that. You have zero control when you're working for somebody. If you become a franchisee and you choose the right, somewhat recession-proof franchise to get into, you are likely going to ride the storm out no matter what happens. You're likely going to make the same or more money than you were in whatever your corporate job was. And you have total control over everything that's going on out there. And you've got the Pillars team, because again, we've been through a lot of those things. We can help guide you not only as you get into and making a decision on a franchise, but as you roll it out and as you get into it. And when you run into a problem, we'll be there for you. So we're always going to say you should consider it. And I think right now is a spectacular time to look at buying a franchise. Thanks a lot, Elizabeth.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jerry. And so to follow up on that, if you are interested or you want to talk to a mentor, please feel free to reach out to us at yourdream@pillarsoffranchising.com. We want to thank you all for joining us on the show today. Our guest was Eric Morales of CareerPlug. Please be sure to like, share, and comment on this episode. Thank you to Jerry Akers and Ray Pillar, our $1 Million mentors, for their insight and wisdom. Thanks as always to Karen Kimsey-Sward for her perspective. And thank you to Fred McMurray, our producer. I am Elizabeth Denham, and together we are your resource for franchising success. This has been Pillars of Franchising, and the dream starts here. Pillars of